Welcome to the Saving Lives podcast. I'm Eddie Joe. Today is the 1st of January of 2023, and I'm doing my first video recording / audio recording podcast. And let's just see how this goes, because maybe I could do video podcasts for Spotify and Apple Podcasts, I guess what it's called. Let's just see how this goes. Let's try something new, and if anything, is some content for my YouTube channel. But I really wanted to start off this podcast / video or whatever saying that 2022, in my opinion, was a great year. At least it was a great year for me. No, not everything was sunshine and roses, but as many of you know from following me for multiple years now, I'm an optimistic dude and tend to have a positive outlook on things. I have personally found that having a positive outlook has been helpful for me, really got me through some hard times, and I just have to say that 2022 was a year that opened up a lot of doors for me that were previously closed. I completed my 5th year now of being at a fellowship in private practice. And in these 5 years of practice, I have to say I have zero burnout. I know there have been a couple rough years that we all have undergone, but I really have to say for those people who are considering critical care medicine that the 7-on, 7-off schedule is really beneficial if you know how to leverage your time off in a way that you could really recover from those previous 7 days. And the reality is also that I love my job as an intensivist. I really love the people who I have the pleasure of working with, the whole entire team, my partners, my colleagues, the nurses, respiratory therapists, environmental service folks like CNAs, everybody who I have the privilege of working with, my NPs, the PAs, everybody who I have the privilege of working with, they're all fantastic. And above all, I still love my patients, and I'm really honored by the fact that they trust me to take the best possible care of them. This year also provided me with a ton of personal growth. The cardiothoracic as well as cardiac ICUs at my hospital are now closed units, and I've taken a larger role in the running of these 2 units, along with my colleagues, of course. And it has been fantastic, at least in my opinion, to work more intimately with the cardiologists as well as the cardiothoracic surgeons to basically take care of patients, come up with protocols, guidelines, things of that nature to have the best outcomes for our patients. Needless to say, I have really learned a lot from them and continue to put forth significant energy to increase my skill set as well as knowledge base to be able to take care of these patients in the cardiothoracic and cardiac ICU. And along the way, I'm also very proud of the nurse practitioners who I have the pleasure of working alongside, as they've also grown their knowledge base as well as their comfort level in taking care of these patients in the cardiac and cardiothoracic ICU. You know, some are getting far more comfortable with an echocardiogram probe, and others are floating swans in patients who have cardiogenic shock, et cetera, et cetera. So their skill set is growing as well, and that is just fantastic and very motivating to just keep on pushing forward. On the educational front, social media, which is where a lot of you have run into my content in some way, shape, or form, and that's why you're listening to me here today. You may have noticed that I've slowed down a bit on the content creation front, and there honestly is a reality to this. First, I have a daughter. She's now 1 year and 2 months old, and like her father, she likes to wake up at exactly 6:30 in the morning every single day, regardless of what time we put her to bed. And before she was born, I would take the hour between 6:30 and 7:30 in the morning to read and create content. And now during that time, I just take care of her. You know, it's a lot of fun to take her out of the crib. I change her diaper. I take her to the kitchen and I feed her, give her milk, bananas, blueberries, anything I could basically shove in her mouth to fill her belly. You know, this is a very special time for my daughter and I to bond. And in addition to that, that hour gives my wife an extra hour of sleep, for which she's very grateful. You see, the thing is that I've heard from a lot of colleagues over the past year and change, basically since folks have known that my wife was pregnant and then we've had the baby, is that there has been a lot of regret in the medical community of the time that they spent working rather than being with their children and seeing their children grow. So I really do not want to fall into that category. I don't want to have that guilt that I did not spend time with my baby, and therefore I'm sacrificing that time from 6:30 to 7:30, which I usually spend reading and creating content. I much prefer to spend it with my daughter. However, this has now led me to try to find a place to create content, and as a result, I'm going to try to wake up an hour earlier than 6:30 to achieve these goals. So for example, today being the 1st of January, I actually woke up at 5:18. This also means that I did not stay up late at night waiting for the ball to drop and all that stuff, where, it's just another day for me, to be honest with you. But it's also a skill of waking up earlier than everybody else that I've learned from some folks who are hyper productive, that is the way that they're able to achieve still being with their family as well as completing their professional goals. So we'll see what it's like to shave off an hour there, and maybe I'll go to sleep a little bit earlier. But either way, I go to sleep around 9:30 or 10 a.m. anyway. And this will hopefully allow me the opportunity to record more Instagram Reels, YouTube video, blog posts, and podcasts, and anything that just might come about, whatever's new and trendy. Instagram has always been my constant source for getting educational content out, but there you might notice as well that my content creation has slowed down because of the aforementioned reason. Hopefully I'll be able to record a reel taking apart one article per week. I mean, it's not a big ask of myself. It should be realistic, but let's just see if I'm able to accomplish that. If you want to keep up with content, though, I'm still reading every day in some way, shape, or form, and I'm sharing some sort of article or link to previous work of mine in the stories. Some people have told me that they've been seeing the same stories over and over again, and to be honest with you, this is because there are people who are still clicking on these links. And so if people just keep on seeing my stories for the first time and they want to read about bicarb, they want to read about this, that, the other, I just want to give them the opportunity to catch up on that data and learn from the stuff that I've written in the past. And I've gotten good feedback from sharing that along the way. It's also creating content, and also a way that I hope to find myself on the good graces of the Instagram algorithm again. So we'll just see how that works. I think I honestly was placed on the naughty list on Instagram because of all the discussions of what, but I'm not going to get into that. My other source of content is my website, eddyjoemd, and I'm actually flattered of how this has actually grown in 2022, because in 2021, the website just had over, so in 2022, let me try to reorganize my thoughts because I'm trying to do this on one take. So in 2021, the website had just about 200,000 views in a year. And in 2022, that number jumped up to 240,000 views in 1 year, almost 250,000 views to my website, which is absolutely bonkers to me. And one of the things I'd like to do, it's a big ask of myself, is to go ahead and start finishing some of the pieces of content that I haven't finished yet. But I don't want to ask too much of myself along those lines, simply because it's kind of impossible, because there's new data coming out on all these things that are my certain niches of sorts that I really get into, and there's all types of studies and evidence and reviews and things that are coming out constantly that could help mold how medicine is practiced. And again, that's the whole reason why we just read so much. But it's quite ambitious for me to tackle so many topics of medicine myself, because at the end of the day, there's nobody helping me with these projects and all these reviews. Everything that you see from my website to this video to the podcast, everything I do by myself, and I don't have anybody working with me. I don't have a team. I don't make enough money from this to be able to pay anybody to help me out with it. But if you are a person who's interested in publishing some content, reach out to me, and you could definitely post it on my website, and it will get some eyes. It's if something you've tried to submit to a medical journal and it's gotten rejected, or you just want to write something down, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll post it on my website. And I know the website has a ton of ads, but honestly, it helps pay me for all the costs. It helps pay for all the costs associated with running the website, such as servers, web hosting, things of that nature. And that's just a trend on the internet these days. I'm aware that there's some very, very excellent free medical sites that are out there, written by some extremely brilliant individuals who do not have ads on their site, but that's something I just can't afford to do. It's also nice to receive a check in the mail. After all, I don't charge any money for the content I do, and I don't have any subscriptions that I ask you guys to pay. So the ads is kind of where it's at for me. One of the things I wanted to mention, though, is you can't even go to ESPN or Weather Channel. You have to watch a 15-second ad or 30-second ad before you see absolutely any piece of content, which is kind of ridiculous in my opinion when you're looking at those huge companies. But anyway, I guess that's how they generate revenue. But a curious and upsetting thing took place on my website a few months ago, because I work with a certain company that does my that does all my ads and all that, and they received a message from Google that they did not appreciate my content on you know what, and they actually asked for Google asked them to reach out to me to take my content off of the internet because it was information that was not, the words that start with miss and dis. But I tried to get back to them and say, hey, by the way, there's citations for all these articles I'm writing and all this content, and it's just my opinion on a lot of things, but a lot of it is supported by evidence because at the end of the day, I'm an intensivist actually taking care of these patients, but they told me they didn't care. They just wanted it off the internet. So I hopefully got away with just taking it off of the search engines, but we'll see what happens. If my site disappears one day, you know where it went. But it's quite frustrating in my opinion because they're trying to consolidate where one could obtain information and they only want it to be in certain sources. That source is not me based on what they're saying here. But anyway, I digress. The Saving Lives podcast continues for yet another year, and I like to create a new season at the beginning of every year, so I guess this would be episode 1 of season 4. And thus far, I've created 111 episodes, so this will be episode 112. If you are a person born in the 80s, you know about hip-hop and R&B, and so you know about 112, the R&B group, but I digress. Let me know your favorite 112 song in the comment section. But this podcast has been extremely rewarding as I've received some fun commentary about it. An example of this was I was at a local conference / get-together, meeting of the minds of sorts, and somebody who was in the audience who's probably listening to this podcast today, so shout out to you and your husband, stated that her husband falls asleep listening to my podcast. He's also in healthcare, but this really cracked me up because, it was just funny to me. At the suggestion of Haney Malmet, Critical Care Now, I have finally upgraded my microphone, which is right here, and hopefully the sound quality is better. And I just hope that, helps you enjoy the content a little bit better. But at the tail end of this year, I got really, really busy. I did, I think, something like 17 lectures over the course of 3 months or something like that. And it prohibited me from being able to create as many podcast episodes as I would have liked to. See, in 2021, I only created 26 podcast episodes. In 2022, I only created 26. I created 34 in 2021, and I created 50 in 2020. So hopefully I could complete at least 2 a month. That would give me 24 for the year. And I guess that would be a good amount. I just want to get my quality up. I also want to thank everybody for listening to the ads and supporting the sponsors of the podcast because, again, that's a little bit of compensation for all this work. Twitter has gotten quite interesting for me. I tend to post on Twitter on a regular basis. I'm going to do so more now because my page has gotten a lot of traction recently. And when I post on Twitter, it's the same stuff I post on Instagram, but via retweets and all that stuff, it has really blown up significantly to where it seems as if I get more reach now on Twitter with a lot of my content compared to what I used to get before. But LinkedIn is a place also where I'm trying to grow, and hopefully that will, get me a little bit more traction to create more content there. So again, it's just stuff so that people could post, could reply to the articles and post their thoughts on it. Let's just see what happens. Now, one of the places where I've struggled a bit is creating content for YouTube. So I'm trying to revive my YouTube channel, which is why I'm doing this podcast / video podcast type thing, because I haven't really had time to upload and record much because of time issues. But in addition to that, my wife and I were fortunate enough to purchase a house that needed a significant amount of remodeling. And in that process, the walls and ceilings of this office that I'm sitting in right now had to be torn down and repainted. And, I still have to hang something behind me to at least give some visual busyness of some sort. I don't know. I guess I don't know what to do with that. I don't know. Some people have some fancy studios. It's probably not going to be that fancy, but I'll try to make it pretty. And last but not least, I've had numerous speaking engagements this year. And I've been fortunate to speak with this company called Northwest Seminars, who put me up earlier in 2020 in Hawaii, and then in Savannah in December. And I've done numerous lectures for them on cardiogenic shock, including mechanical circulatory support, high flow and non-invasive ventilation, lactate metabolism, metabolic resuscitation, IV fluids, fluid responsiveness, ICU nutrition, as well as gut health, and vasopressors. In 2023, I've already booked 2 different engagements, one of them being in Key West in March, and then the other one being in Charleston, South Carolina in December. So if you're interested in earning some CME credits and grabbing a beer, swing by to one of these conferences, enroll, and you'll get your CME credits, and we'll also hang out. Several online conferences have also invited me to run my mouth of sorts, and the one that was a ton of fun was Resus X. I always love working with Haney and all the brilliant people who he invites to speak at that conference. And this particular year, I spoke about procalcitonin and also debated about IV fluids. But that's kind of like a little rundown of the talks I have going on. I always have to mention my conflicts of interest because it's always good to disclose these. I do serve as a speaker / consultant for 3 different companies. And to be honest with you, I'm very appreciative of my relationship with these companies, as to be honest, they create products that I truly believe help my patients, and they are also supported by data. And when I get the opportunity to speak for them, I do present data. I don't say, hey, by the way, you do this for this. It's like, no, this is what the study suggests, and we're using this device because of this reason over this device. And when I create my talks, in case somebody wants to start working in the industry front, I don't have any slides that belong to the company. Like they oftentimes could potentially provide you with information for the lecture or whatnot, and say, hey, use our slide deck. But that's not something I personally do because I want to stay honest to the data and stay honest to myself. That also along those lines, there's been no shortage of companies who've asked me to reach out and who have reached out to me, to work with them, and I just don't believe in their product, so I don't work with them. So to wrap this up, I personally would like to thank you all for supporting the different content that I create. If you're listening to the podcast, please take a minute and give a 5-star review if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the like and subscribe button, as it definitely helps the channel grow. And if you're reading this on my website, then you're probably realizing that I type things down on my website, and then I use that as a script of sorts so that I could actually get through the content faster and not have to spend so much time editing. It goes much smoother. After all, I have to try to maximize my time as much as possible and leverage my efforts in as many ways as possible. Like I'm able to sit down right now because the baby's taking a nap. So while the baby's taking a nap, then I can do my work. So all in all, I just wish you all the best 2023 possible. Hopefully it's better than your 2022. And as always, I'd like to send out much positivity and much love to everybody, because at the end of the day, people count on us to take care of them and to save their lives. And we have a skill set to be able to do so. So sending much love to everybody. We got this. Hope you all have a great day. Bye.